Okay, so quick summary. Part 1. Introduction. What is a lane swap per Riot? What's the point of a lane swap? Why do lane swaps matter? Why are lane swaps problematic in League of Legends? And what are Riot's plans to address lane swaps? Will their plans work? And what is player perception so far? That'll conclude part 1. Lane swaps. This was patch 25.05 on their page. So for those unfamiliar, lane swaps are the fairly common practice for pro teams to play out uneven 2v1 lanes instead of playing out conventional 1v1 top lane and 2v2 bot lane matchups. Not only does this unevenness make certain champions nearly unplayable, that I absolutely agree with, if they can't withstand the lane swap itself, it deprives viewers of watching the more exciting heads-up matchups that conventional lanes provide. That I disagree with, and not even pro players are particularly excited to play these uneven lanes out. That I agree with. Our prior design for reducing lane swaps, okay, then they go on. But the reason that I highlighted that little part and want to go on is this was the post on March 4th. It refers to the patch on January 7th, which was the patch after preseason October Worlds. So this means that this solution where we're at right now is a 7 month, and this is what we have for lane swaps. Okay, I digress. Another interesting thing is on this blog, I'd like them to correct it, but it says specifically, detection is looking for support plus another champion in not bot lane. Lane swap detection will activate upon seeing World Atlas in mid or top lane between 135 2:15 and 135 3 minutes respectively, at which point the penalties will be placed purely on the support. So, okay, which one is it, Riot? Here you're talking about World Atlas, so the support moving is the lane swap, but anything else is any other formation other than that is not a lane swap? Like myself, I adhere to the original point, which does identify the problem. 2-1-2, 1-1-1-2, those are standard games. The rest are lane swaps. That's my position. I'll go into detail why that matters in part 2. But so let's go over what's the point of a lane swap. Now, I'm not necessarily the best qualified to talk about the topic, so I'd like to let professional player Bwipo set the scene for us.
First things first, though, one thing that you have to unanimously agree upon when you lane swap is someone's getting on your team. That's just the way it is. If the enemy team plays normal League of Legends, someone's going down 300-400 gold. There's no way around that. And I have a game to prove that.
If you're ever interested on seeking knowledge about how to play, how pro players think about lane swapping at the highest level, check it out. It is by far the best content I've ever seen with regards to lane optimization, lane swap optimization in the professional setting. Okay, but my key takeaways from this for the purpose of discussion is, okay, lane swaps can get your AD ahead in XP at the expense of top or support having a bit less. But more importantly, for me, it was this clip.
And fundamentally, and this is the truth of lane swaps, the better team will still win, even if you get a lane swap. It's pretty funny. Like, if you check Worlds, like, there's no team that cheesed the win off a lane swap. Like, pretty much. It didn't exist. The better team almost always won. Just the way it is. Early game advantage matters, but it doesn't end the game. So I just want to help you guys understand that as well.
The better team won the game. Lane swaps did not matter in the outcome of the game. So I would also like to remind viewers at this point, like talking about what's the point of a lane swap, that if we go back to that blog post that was part of the patch notes for this season 2, our hope is to keep pro play lane swapping at nearly 0. Wow. So penalties, they're really aiming to like nuke it. Q-Rate freak.
There might still be a team that lane swaps because of that. But I think it'll be under 10% of games.
Okay. So we can imagine that Riot is actually aiming for 0 to 10%. So why are they aiming for 0 to 10% if it doesn't matter for the outcome of the game? For this, I want to look at standard sports examples, so these billion-dollar organizations that have chosen to change rules to change player behavior. So in 1990, soccer came out with the back pass rule, so you're not allowed to pass the ball to your keeper and for him to pick it up. 8 years later, they added, okay, not only can he not pick it up, if he ever picks up the ball, he can only hold it for 6 seconds. And now in 2025, they changed that to 8 seconds, and a corner kick is awarded. So, okay, interesting. But what it was doing is because there's an example that in 1994, this Claudio Taffarel just was constantly picking up the ball for 10 to 15 seconds at a time, trying to protect his 1-0 lead. So you as a viewer would watch this and be like, okay, like go US, go US, go US, and go Brazil, go Brazil, go Brazil, right? And it was just just no action. So here's another example. In hockey, this was in 2005, they removed the 2-line pass because players had realized that they could put 5 members in the neutral zone, and it was the optimal play to win the game. Goals scored was at an all-time low. So by removing the rule, the game is now faster. Players that are drafted are faster, but goals scored actually remain the same. So what's interesting about this example is that it turns out that the optimal play nowadays is to play as if the rule existed. The only difference is that now players have access to like a Hail Mary-esque pass in the hockey setting, which is itself winning and compelling. In 2023, baseball added a rule where you have to be 2 people in the infield on the left-hand side of second base and 2 people on the right-hand side of second base for the shift. Analytics had power that whenever you had a batter come up, you could play the most likely percentage place where that player tends to hit the ball. And every player had their set positions and they knew where to go. Because that's how seriously they do take the game. And it just made for the uncompelling counterplay to happen, where if I'm a batter and I'm being shift on, my duty is to slap the ball opposite field. And the counterplay is you'll have a outfielder just trotting, picking up the ball, and softly tossing it into the infield. The end result is there's still a person on first because he got a hit. But the way it happened is uncompelling. In 2023, they also added a pitch clock. So there's a timer that now goes on to force the game to go ahead and move on. It made it so much easier for schedulers and broadcasters to schedule the games because now there's like a set length. Imagine if like our arena rounds were gated by a clock that is actually not a clock. It's gated by a ready check that players have to click. And if they don't click, we're not proceeding to the next round. So again, just another example of a change. Now I know like other examples exist here, and there's other opportunities too that I was thinking about that like they should change too. Like football for me is uncompelling at the end. This is American football with this whole situation where if you use your timeouts and there's like 9 minutes left, the winning team can just run down the clock, and there's these celebrations and whatnot. And I just find it frustrating. It's like if the pinnacle moment of the game was decided at the third quarter and not now. Like, but why are we still playing this game if it's already over? Like, it's just there's a mismatch between like it should be the most epic part. We're on a knife edge. So anyway, that's just a personal take on that. I don't know again the sport that well, but the idea is that viewership matters and the perception matters. Okay, and if viewers don't engage, ad revenue gets reduced. So the point here for this entire tangent is that there's a precedent for Riot using the current tactic of let's change the rules to change player behavior. And they are correct to do so. This is part of the solution, and this is not the problem. So why are lane swaps such a problem? So reason one that they bring up, like I said, was gameplay counterplays supposedly uncompelling. But here, like I've been watching replays, and my God, is it interesting. You see, it might just be the one time, right? But you're having a team dive on one side of the map, a 3v1, and the other team diving a 3v1, or perhaps a 4v1. And then you've got somebody trying to somehow finesse his way into XP range, all before 4 minutes. There's like 3 kills on the map if it's done, if it goes well, if it doesn't go well. Like, this is action packed. There's nothing wrong with this. But what I do think is a problem with this is that the counterplay, as the team that has opted into the 2v2, I'm going to win the 2v2. I've chosen this to champ select. I'm ready to 2v2. But now I'm faced with this decision. All right? I know you know that I want a lane swap. But you know I know that you know that I know that you know that I know that you know. It's literally this silly mini game where you're coin flipping to try to figure out, am I going to be able to get them in the 2v2 setting? And since Riot has decided to, if you do swap, and you win this minigame coin flip, then we will slap you with a debuff so severe that you will never do it again. Okay, that seems aggressive, but I do absolutely agree with that. It's like, it's uncompelling. I know you know, but who am I? I know you are, but who am I? Like, just Gary, there is a problem here, and it's that the counterplay is uncompelling. That's my stance, at least, on this. Reason number 2, lane swaps make certain champions nearly unplayable. So that I absolutely agree with also, and it was previously stated in the patch notes that I had brought up. Unevenness makes certain champions nearly unplayable. So Fearless is healthy for the game, in my opinion. Champion diversity results in compelling gameplay. It's fresh. I love to see the Baus FFS play a Kled in a pro game. It's riveting. It's different. It's interesting. It should be rewarded and not stifled. Alternatively, let's cue Freak.
Because what we discovered by doing this, by like trying this out and having gameplay analysis, which has like former LCS player and a former LCS coach on staff, is like, hey, so we just have like Cassante and Kaisa just lane top lane. They tower dive the top laner with our jungler. It always works. Our Leona just sits around her tower and hopes she doesn't die, or double jungles, but she just like doesn't join the tower dive, and it's worth it.
Now, what I heard from this video is the optimal play starting at draft is to pick a comp which can swap, dive top, and defend the bot dive. If you can do that, if you fit that framework, I'm thinking Kalista, Kaisa, Cassante, they all start with K. These 3 champs are going to be pro jailed. Just instantly. That's what I heard, at least. Reason number 3. The best counter to lane swap is to lane swap yourself. To pick the lane swapping comp. Because it's all about being able to the previous point, like it's all about being able to survive the dive. So a Scion is good at surviving a dive. A Leona can be deemed good at surviving a dive. Camille can be deemed good as surviving a dive. Right? These champs, there's that. They have that possibility. Where Kale surviving a dive, no, ain't gonna happen. That's not the fantasy. So, and you also need to be able to dive the opposing team to get the advantage, right? And if you flex that. So both teams play bank comps. The same thing happens on both sides of the map. So that compounds reason number 2, that it limits champion pool. Because if 100% of the time, the optimal play is to lane swap, and the only way to counter lane swaps is to pick a lane swapping comp, you're stuck in a meta where only lane swapping champs are going to be picked. You can ignore all the rest of the champion pool. They don't matter. This is all about this group of champs. And then, like, you know, this lower diversity, to bring it back to what my sports analogy was all about, to get it back, is as a viewer now, you get to see of the 160 or 80 champions that could ever belong on the Rift, you get to see the 12 that actually matter for lane swaps all the time. And that's it. Yeah, I described that as uncompelling gameplay. Yeah, that's a problem. Now, why is it an issue? It's because lane swaps are always, and I can't stress this enough, lane swaps are always the optimal way to play League of Legends. Hi, this is Guardian Zoodalore from the future, and I need to emphasize this point more, especially using some more sport analogies. Let's revisit that post. Not even pro players are particularly excited to play these uneven lanes out. Now, if you follow professional chess, you might be familiar with a similar problem that they've faced. The rise of chess engines has dramatically shifted the meta at the top level. At the pro level, matches often come down to a memory game who's memorized more of the optimal lines. A single mistake in preparation, not play, can decide the outcome. That's not the game top players want to play. It's becoming boring, mechanical, and devoid of creativity. To fix this, the chess community introduced a new mode, freestyle chess, also known as Chess 960. It keeps the same core rules but with a twist. The back rank pieces are randomized. This small variation renders memorized openings far less effective. Suddenly, the skill that matters most isn't memorization, but real-time problem solving under pressure. That's exciting. That's compelling. Some purists may complain, but it breathes life back into the game. There's a precedent for this kind of shift in badminton as well. In 2006, the sport changed its scoring system. Previously, you could only score a point on your own serve, meaning games were often about long rallies and endurance. After switching to a rally point system, where any rally scores a point, regardless of serve, the nature of the game has changed completely. It shifted from an endurance-based sport to one of explosive speed endurance. For the track and field crowd, it's like asking marathoners to suddenly run the 400 meters. Sure, they can do it. Probably under 50 seconds too, which is amazing. But they're nowhere near Wade Van Niker's 43.03 world record. The demands are different. Some players adapted by building strength, others faded from the scene. Today, professional badminton is among the most calorie-intensive sports in the world at the highest level. That's a recipe for compelling viewership. Now, bringing it back to League of Legends, there exists a LaneSwapGambit. If one team drafts a LaneSwap comp and the other doesn't, the team that fails to mirror will almost certainly lose the game. The only viable response is to also draft for a lane swap. You'll often hear the take pro players are afraid to innovate because they're scared of losing their jobs. I'd argue this is shallow. The real reason? The stakes of a failed draft are enormous. If a team dares to blind pick something like Kale top and the enemy executes a lane swap, that Kale will be stuck at level 1 while her opponent hits level 4 before lane normalizes. That's not just a small lead, that's game losing. Even the better team can lose simply because they lost the gambit. So why aren't pro players eager to play out these mismatched lanes? Because they've already done it thousands of times. They've memorized the outcomes. It's a solved space. There's no dynamic decision making, no innovation. It's a memory test. Chess addressed this problem with randomness, disrupting memorized play to elevate creativity and problem solving. League now faces similar challenge, with AI increasingly able to predict match outcomes from champ select alone. How will the game evolve? We need a long-term solution. I explore that in part 2. But for now, let's cue coach and past player Rogue.
Pro teams love to break the game, and Riot simply hates them for doing it. The most obvious example of this is the level 1 lane swap that has plagued pro play for years. Riot at one point went to such an extreme that they made the top tower take 85% less damage for the first 5 minutes of the game, but this somehow still didn't stop pro players from lane swapping anyway. In fact, pro teams still lane swapped in about half of the games played at the most recent World Championship despite this change.
The only reason that lane swaps happen 50% of the time, in my opinion, right, I can definitely be wrong on this, it's kind of funny, is because it is a coin flip. I know you know, I know you know that, I know you know. So it's a guess of who's gonna. They could have met 2v2 top. That would have been a possible outcome, right? Because you're always playing for that swap, and if you don't get it, okay, well then you're forced to play standard. I could look into the statistics, but I don't work at Riot. I don't have access to all these metrics and whatnot. And I'm doing my best to find what I can and what I'm exposed to. But the idea being that it's just, the problem is the optimal strat is lane swapping. It is 100% viable all the time, and it's only be mitigated by lane swapping yourself. That's the issue. It's the optimal play. Lane swapping is optimal. Okay, now you understand. So how will Riot address the lane swaps being optimal? Q Freak.
If a team wants to lane swap, they can they can have their support gain no income. They can have their top laner fall behind in XP. They can have their top laner and AD carry share gold, and they can lose plate spot lane. There might still be a team that lane swaps because of that, but I think it'll be under 10% of games.
So what's their solution? What I'm hearing is, let's just remove lane swaps from League of Legends. If it's not there, the strategy is suboptimal. All right. Will it work? Now, I'm of the opinion that pro plays are pros because they're just going to finesse their way out of it. They're going to figure out a way to game the system. As soon as you provide a solution where, okay, we're following World Atlas, well, guess what? Here's a game of Keria running World Atlas, actually the one support bot side. Was that a lane swap? Well, technically, as per the timers, he lane swapped mid, but then he didn't anymore. He gets penalized, but is this change going to affect this? No, they need to go even deeper. And they do. Like, Riot is going further. Like, they're adding all those levers tops that still need to go on, even though that the lane swap detection with the book thing that's happening ain't really working to cover 100% of the cases. So what's going to happen the next time that something is discovered, right? Because if lane swapping is not the optimal play, then what is? Okay, well then how does this interact? This is a nightmare. You can't treat this problem as a case-by-case basis, trying to say, no, you can't do that, you can't do this, you can do this. Because in a sense, lane swaps is part of League of Legends, right? Freak does say that in his...
There might still be a team that lane swaps because of that, but I think it'll be under 10% of games. But that's kind of the only play you can make because you literally cannot tower dive. You cannot kill turret plates. You can only try to freeze. And then at 330 you can do the late swap and be like, okay, well, Leona walks top lane at 335. We're just playing 2v1 now. But that's fine. The late swap is just part of League of Legends.
If my top laner was to die and I'm jungling, top laner dies, opponents crash the wave into top turret, mid turret at the same time, or let's say, for my analogy to make more sense, 15 seconds later, also dies. Well, I dropped my jungle camp. I lane swapped to top to be able to catch my wave. So me as a jungler became a laner. And then I have to go back mid because the correct play is there's CS and gold and XP that's bleeding mid. I have to hold that. And then I get punished with a mechanic like pickpocket. I get punished for doing the optimal play because Riot is implementing a solution that doesn't fix the problem. It just puts a band-aid on it. So I'm guessing that there's going to be another patch and that we're still going to be saying, I'll be aggressive on this, we're still going to be seeing lane swaps at Worlds 2025 at a rate beyond that which Riot is comfortable with. 0 to 10%, let's say. Now, I'd love to be proven wrong. I really hope that they manage to get it right. But right now, I look how things are going 7 months in, and I'm concerned. Now, if we go back to the post that I had put up, this is the blog post of the Season 2 start. It says, our hope is to keep pro play lane swapping at nearly 0. All right. Focus on the green part this time, while continuing to reduce its impact on regular players.
I would never lane swap in solo queue intentionally, but, it is what it is. People want to do it, people can do it. It's none of my business. I'm not going to grief the game by walking top there and get griefed.
This feature is aimed to get rid of lane swaps, but it may also completely negate early roaming or some early invades. Furthermore, all it takes is one person being in the wrong spot and you may completely end the game.
Now, I'm not sure if you guys have ever experienced a screen like what happened in lane swaps. Myself, the first time I had seen such an interaction was as TK. I happened to roll a hex gate map, and I happened to hit my passive 3 times on a laner, who happened to be beside a hex gate while my ult was available. And then I eat him and I say, hey, wouldn't it be fun to go on a journey with this guy, even if it's not it's suboptimal? Wouldn't it just be fun and funny? So let's right click on the gate. And when I get this error message, it says, oh, you cannot do this at this time. That's kind of frustrating. Like, the game is saying that, no, you're having too much fun. Stop it. Like, it's not enough that the game is toxic with, like, the player base, and that's an issue that needs to be addressed, and it continuously is. Like, they're doing their best. But it's not only that, it's that also the game is complaining about my gameplay, that I'm being toxic. I was like, come on, man. I'm just trying to have some fun here. It's the whole point of this fantasy world. So, like, anyway. So, in my opinion, a more elegant temporary is key here, solution to, like, fixing lane swaps instead of having these messages pop up and this interaction happen is for Riot to just say to pros, if you lane swap, you forfeit the game. You have to go 2v2 bot side for the first 3 minutes. Now, although this might be considered overreaching by them, Riot has a precedent for this. So, in Vivo keyed at VCT Champions 2021 in Valorant. Pro Team had to forfeit match 6 because they exploited a bug that Riot had clearly mentioned was not to be exploited. They hadn't specified the punishment for it, which is part of where the issue was. But in my mind, Riot came out of this as a champion, a hero for pro play integrity. They figured out that there was an issue. We had said it was an issue. It takes us too much resources to fix this problem. It's too complicated. It impacts too many systems. It breaks other systems. Like, there's an issue that we cannot address this. Simply don't do it. Well, again, I'll forfeit the point that it's a lame solution. Absolutely. But it is a better solution than to slap this, like, restrictive chain on a player playing League of Legends. And here, I'd like to cue Bardinet and Reckless.
Bardinet against Los Ratones Reckless.
Lucianami with Bard top. I'm gonna defensively ward something. Watch out, watch out, watch out. We're gonna get late invaded here. I'm gonna ward very defensively right there. I'm gonna base to see if they start our blue. This is gonna be a very hard game to play. Their top laner is a support. So they have 2 supports, and this guy is gonna be laning bot, and top is gonna be open lane for them. And we're gonna losing 2v2 as well. So yeah, support item Bard top. It's a bit cooked early game here.
So Bardinet is running a double World Atlas strat. He plays it in a style where the floor is lava topside. You don't go topside. Very rarely go because it's lava. And you roam as Bard top. And you try to funnel your mid laner, you try to funnel your bot side, and you play around the map, and then you group with your jungler and perhaps take plays. Okay, it's a completely different game. Now, if you look at the clip, like, I've let it go, but Reckless knows what the correct play is. I am a pro player. I am meant to do this. The rest of my team doesn't know how to react to this, but I do. He ended up losing the match, again, because his team didn't know how to address the problem. But this style of having now World Atlas top has been gutted by Riot. Because there can only be a World Atlas on the team now, and it's going to your support. You can't buy it. So now the support Bard roaming strat, and his passive's all about, like, roaming the map, right? So you've just destroyed Bard top as a player fantasy. He can't prove this is no, this works too. All you guys don't believe. So what's players' perception so far? Let's cue coach and past player Rogue.
This drove Riot to such an extreme that they full-on slapped the panic button, and now we are stuck with this terrible lane swap detected mechanic that literally everyone hates.
In fairness to Rogue, when he says everyone, he's clearly referring to the overwhelming majority within his circles, not the entire player base. It is more than likely that most League of Legends players do prefer a version of the game where no creative solutions exist.
You also can't buy the support item if you're not support, as we've seen in some of the past terrorizing metas revolving around double support items and things of that nature. And those metas were never really fun to play or play against, so it seems Riot is definitely taking a more direct and funneled approach to directing the game to be played in the way they want it to be played. And I don't really have an issue with this, to be honest. In my opinion, League is the most fun when it's just standard 5v5.
Personally, I enjoy facing the occasional off-meta comp like Rengar Ivern bot. Every time someone points out a specific interaction that they would like to see removed, top should be an island, no ADC mid, no mages bot side, chances are it's either A, being abused because it's overpowered, or B, it's someone's fantasy pick or playstyle that resonates with them. Every time we tune the game for the masses, an individual fantasy is silenced. When you get what you want, but not what you need. It's now 2025. Some systems in League, like Pickpocket, were created in an era when Riot didn't have the levers they do now. The community is significantly more informed. Educational content is everywhere. Coaching is accessible. Riot communicates more openly. We're able to finally confront some of these legacy systems that keep resurfacing. Not because they're broken, but because they've always been part of the game. We as a player base didn't realize it. Take support gold sharing, for example. You're not supposed to take the kill as a support. The optimal move has always been to funnel that gold to your carry. What if we embraced that reality? What if we structured balance around something like 90% standard play, 5% early lane swaps, 5% funnel strat, ADC or jungle, and leave room for new strategies to evolve? Maybe it's time to stop fearing change. I know it's daunting, but I believe with care it can be done. Part 2 of this mini-series will dive into a potential system that I believe could support this shift. Riot, if you're watching, I'm still job hunting.